For 12 years, HyeonWoo Kim was trapped inside the tutorial tower, endlessly fighting monsters and growing stronger with each cycle. He becomes the strongest player in existence, far surpassing ordinary hunters. One day, he is mysteriously released and quickly realizes that the outside world is now plagued by powerful monsters and corrupt guilds. Seeking answers, he begins hunting down those responsible for his imprisonment while also protecting innocent people. Along the way, he gains allies, including the 3 top guild leaders in Korea. As he clashes with elite hunters and hidden enemies, he uncovers a greater conspiracy behind the tower's creation and his unusual situation. The story begins when monsters start appearing across the globe. As panic spreads, people run away from a monster holding a car, shouting for help and desperately trying to escape. Cities are left in chaos, and along with the monsters, a strange structure suddenly appears. A news helicopter hovered above, with the reporter explaining that the structure had shown no activity so far and that the military was closely monitoring it. Then, several floating windows appeared beside the monsters, making people even more uneasy about the series of supernatural events taking place. The mountain that had formed in the heart of the city looked more like a tower, featuring multiple entrances and exits, while a purple glow illuminated its interior. This marked humanity's first confrontation with the tutorial tower. The tower periodically summoned humans from all over the world, forcibly pulling them inside without any restrictions regarding age or gender. Once inside, they were required to clear its challenges, often forming adventurer groups to survive. However, the tower proved so difficult that only 20% of the participants made it out alive. Those who did survive returned stronger, gaining special abilities and becoming humanity's best chance in the battle against the monsters. 12 years after the first successful completion of the tower, 2-tongued frog monsters were suddenly struck by a purple ray, slicing them clean in half. The one who had launched the attack was a young man with blonde hair and light-colored eyes, known as the Hunter. The crowd around him erupted in cheers, taking pictures as if he were a superstar. After the tower incident, hunters became the idols of humanity, attracting attention from all sides. Those who became hunters could achieve the same level of fame and fortune as celebrities. Ordinary people watching them on television dreamed of following the same path, marking the start of a new era where hunters held significant power in society. As time passed, hunters increased their service prices, and to shield themselves from government control, they established exclusive organizations. These groups, known as guilds, negotiated peace treaties with governments, cementing their role in society and even participating in television programs. The show Getting to Know Hunters was created to highlight trending topics, featuring news and intriguing details about hunters. Today, the program welcomes the leaders of 3 major guilds. The first guest is Seo Kwan-han, the leader of the Goguryeo Guild, a man with brown hair and eyes and a commanding presence. The second is Seoyeon Lee, the leader of the Erangs Guild, a woman with blue hair and eyes, radiating a gentle aura. The third is Hyeon Kim, the leader of the Souls Guild, a handsome man with red eyes and a modern look. Getting to Know Hunters has gained popularity, and last week, it became the most watched program with a 35.7% viewership rating, thanks to strong public support. The host then asks the guests about an advanced player who still remains in the tutorial. The guild masters react with surprise, but the host presses on, questioning whether they know the identity of this experienced player. Seo Kwan-han responds that, based on recent reports, it appears he is still alive and doing well inside the tower. Seoyeon Lee adds that there is no one who doesn't recognize this person. He was one of the first to be sent into the tower and has been trapped there for the past 12 years. Sihyun describes it as more of a curse. Unlike other players, he cannot leave and is endlessly forced to return to the first floor of the tower, having to restart from the beginning each time. The reporter is astonished by a hunter who has completed the tower multiple times, noting that hunters can only exit the tower once they have fully mastered all basic skills. A man who has cleared it repeatedly over 12 years must have become an exceptionally powerful hunter. Rumors suggest that he can complete floors 1 through 100 in a single day. Inside the tower, people run in panic, calling for help while dressed in armor and wielding bows and swords, except for one man who wears casual clothes and sandals. Players are thrown violently into the air, crashing to the ground soon after. With a calm expression, the man faces the boss of the 10th floor, a demonic creature with flaming hair and horns jutting from its forehead. Just Balok's head alone is as large as the man, highlighting the sheer size of his body. The man remarks that if he could leave the tower, he would likely be classified as rank A or higher. Online discussions about the advanced player are widespread. Some speculate that achieving rank A or even S after exiting the tower is possible, but they question which tower must be cleared to attain that ranking. A rank S hunter is powerful enough to demolish mountains using only their abilities. One individual shares that he encountered the advanced player while ascending the dungeon on floor 72. 3 werewolves appeared, yet the man continued forward, effortlessly defeating them alone. Others claim that he once kicked a monster from the first floor all the way to the 10th. This same man confronts the final boss, landing a powerful kick directly to its face while grinning. The impact of his strike is so forceful that the boss's chin gets buried into the ground. He then plants his foot on the boss's head and yells, demanding to know who the real boss is. With a playful grin, the man insults the boss, saying his stick is 2 inches longer than the boss's. The boss's defeat is sealed with a final attack from his sandal. As he watches the fallen boss vanish, he mutters that he will have to start over once again. Over the past 12 years, the time required to clear the tower has significantly decreased. Although there are multiple towers across the world, they all follow the same theme. Because of this, each time a new group of hunters completes it, strategies and techniques are shared, making it easier for future challengers to obtain better equipment and refine their tactics against the monsters. These discoveries are passed down globally. As a result, records now exist for the fastest completion of the tutorial tower. However, the tower remains a formidable challenge. A sudden explosion strikes several hunters at once. Despite the wealth of knowledge available on how to conquer the tower, only a select few manage to succeed. A young man lies on the ground, staring in terror at the monstrous foe before him. Upon reaching the 99th floor, many players have perished in their battle against the boss. The tower's final test is merciless. Out of 95 participants, 70 have already been slain by the boss. This fearsome entity has claimed the lives of more than half of the hopeful hunters, but it suddenly takes a flying kick to the head. The onlookers watch in shock as Balok's head is sent soaring from his body. The man responsible for the attack lands firmly on the ground. Having completed the tower for the 1,349th time, he stands before a purple portal surrounded by roots. His eyes blink, and as he opens them, he is greeted by a familiar message: "Welcome to the tutorial tower. Heading for completion number 1,350. The man bursts into laughter, repeating it over and over until he collapses to the ground. Lying in the last empty hall, he screams, cursing the tower and begging to go home. He remains on the floor. Still sighing, he opens the status window. A floating screen appears before his eyes. HyeonWoo Kim, now 36 years old, has nearly all his attributes maxed out at the tutorial's limit. 12 years ago, he faced the same boss alongside a group of hunters. With immense effort, they succeeded in killing the boss and completing the tower. Overjoyed that they could finally return home, they stood before the portal. The group expressed gratitude, saying they could never have done it without him. He tells them to stay in touch once they are outside. However, when he opens his eyes again, the same message appears: "Welcome to the tutorial tower." The armor he had worn also vanished, forcing him to start over with a new set of people. A message then appeared, informing him that he was cursed by the tower, leaving him frustrated. With his status window open, he attempted to deny reality before embarking on a search for a cure. Completing the tutorial tower alone multiple times, he strengthened his body to its peak, capable of crushing piles of rocks effortlessly. Yet, no matter how many times he completed the tower, he always returned to the first floor. Nothing worked. After 5 years of exhausting every possible method, he was still unable to escape. Losing hope and resigning himself to his fate, he decided to make the most of his situation. Disguising himself, he interacted with newcomers, giving them missions as if he were part of the tower. This became his act of playing the NPC. Later, he took on the role of a military instructor, training hunters. Wearing a cap and military uniform taken from a former soldier turned hunter, he embraced his new role. However, after a while, he grew tired of interacting with people. Watching them leave the tower and share stories of the outside world, he felt increasingly bored and lonely, having nothing to occupy his time. Now, as he lies on the floor, gazing at his attribute window, he notices something he hasn't seen in years. A message appears: "The loop has been removed." He quickly rises, clutching the floating screen in disbelief. His eyes widen as they shine with excitement at the message before him. Letting out a deafening shout that echoes throughout the tower, he prepares himself and leaps, breaking through multiple floors in his exhilaration to finally go home. The scene shifts back to the program. The host mentions that the fastest recorded completion of the tower was approximately 10 months. She then asks if the 18th group of hunters could surpass this record. The guild leaders hesitate, saying it's difficult to determine. The number of hunters varies, and numerous factors influence the outcome based on the strength of the group. Strategy plays a critical role, and success depends on their techniques. Beyond that, things become significantly harder after floor 451, as a high-ranking boss appears every 10 floors. From that point on, luck is no longer a factor. Inside the tower, an ogre, one of these high-ranking bosses, trembles as an earthquake shakes the ground. Rising from beneath him, HyeonWoo emerges, his white eyes filled with fury. He moves through the tower, demolishing floors in his wake. The resulting explosions are so powerful that they are visible from outside. Finally reaching floor 99, he once again faces the boss, but this time, an unstoppable determination burns in his gaze. Fueled by the excitement of his long-awaited escape, he delivers a devastating punch to the boss's chest, killing it instantly. From the outside, the tower resembles a battlefield. Explosions, cracks, and flames cover the structure. Near the tower, the Korean Hunters Association has set up a monitoring base. Besides assisting new hunters, their objective is to track the completion times. Two shocked men watch as a portal forms, realizing a new record has just been set. While making a call, a suited man instructs the other to prepare for the arrival of the survivors. However, only one person steps out of the portal, walking calmly. HyeonWoo looks at the outside world, taking in the sight of countless buildings surrounding him. The only thing he can do is laugh. The suited man approaches, congratulating him on successfully leaving the tutorial. Stunned by the world before him, the protagonist looks at the man and asks if he has truly escaped the tower. With tears streaming down his face, he screams with joy. The man checks the participant list but does not find his name among the 18th group. Scanning through the older groups, he reaches the very first tutorial group and finally locates his name. Shocked, he looks at HyeonWoo and exclaims that he is the legendary advanced player, HyeonWoo. Still overwhelmed with joy, HyeonWoo continues jumping, completely ignoring what was just said. The first person ever summoned to the tower has officially escaped after 12 long years. A week later, a large crowd gathers in front of a building. The reporter from Getting to Know Hunters is at Korea's tutorial center, where the hunters of the 18th group will undergo their first ranking evaluation. The 18th group is a special case. Having set a new world record for completing the tower in the shortest time, they have captured global attention. The reporter mentions another circulating rumor: the advanced player has finally escaped the tower. Inside the VIP waiting area of the tutorial tower, the guild leaders have assembled. Seoyeon Lee asks if he truly got out. Sehyun confirms that there is only one person named HyeonWoo who entered back in 2006. She assumes he must still look the same as when they first met, since inside the tower, hunger, sleep, and even aging are non-existent. However, Seo Kwan-han wonders what kind of monster he has become after spending so many years trapped into tutorial tower. The ranking evaluation soon begins. The novice hunters gather, equipped with the basic gear that was provided except for one person at the back of the room, casually eating Doritos. The protagonist, who has already eaten all the Doritos available on the shelves, draws the attention of the other hunters. He asks why they are wearing that equipment, and a man replies that it was handed out earlier in the morning and is necessary to avoid failing the evaluation test. He didn't even notice when the equipment was distributed because he was asleep. As the evaluation begins, everyone focuses. A door opens, and they step forward. The bright light coming from it is so strong that the protagonist squints, wondering what awaits him this time. They arrive at the ranking evaluation labyrinth, a massive metallic structure where a group of people stands at the entrance. A man in a suit welcomes them. David, and a rank hunter, will be overseeing the exam. He explains that the entire world is currently watching the test. The hunters, clad in protective gear and wielding their respective weapons, prepare themselves, though some appear nervous. Noticing this, David reassures them that there is no need to be tense since this is nothing compared to the tutorial. While David continues speaking, the protagonist yawns at the back, already bored with the situation. David pulls out his phone to introduce the first test. With just a single tap, he triggers a loud noise and a slight tremor, explaining that hunters will face many difficult situations, and this will be one of them. Behind him, scattered pieces of concrete begin shifting simultaneously, assembling into a labyrinth. This labyrinth is filled with traps. He had previously said it would be easy, But in truth, they will have to use all their abilities to get through it. The countdown for the test begins, and the hunters brace themselves. As they move into the labyrinth, David feels pleased with the discipline of the new hunters and expects them to yield good results, recalling his own early days. The protagonist approaches him and asks if the objective is simply to reach the other side. David glances at him, scanning him up and down, wondering who this man is. He questions whether the protagonist is a novice, and is puzzled as to why he isn't wearing the provided equipment. Seeing how relaxed he is, David doubts if he is even taking the exam seriously. Standing face to face, he asks the protagonist if he thinks the test is insignificant. The protagonist tells him to lecture the noisy crowd running around instead. David grows irritated by HyeonWoo's arrogance, while HyeonWoo is impressed by David's boldness in confronting him. HyeonWoo suggests a bet. If he can finish in under 20 seconds, David will owe him 100,000. David hesitates, his pride stung as the protagonist increases the bet to 1 million, asking if he is afraid. Before David can respond, the protagonist dashes toward the labyrinth and places his hand on one of the walls. He marvels at how much money a hunter can earn, thinking that being a hunter might actually be a great job. Seeing him prepare to throw a punch, David wonders what he is about to do. The guild leaders watching the live broadcast are also intrigued by the situation. With a single strike, the protagonist smashes the wall so forcefully that the solid structure ripples like water. The impact is so immense that it creates a chain reaction, destroying every wall in its path. Turning to David, he casually remarks, "The exit is on the other side." He has forcibly created an exit, winning the bet. Everyone is stunned by the sheer madness of what they just witnessed, unsure how they can even evaluate his ranking. The guild masters who fought alongside him in the past wonder if he was always like this, like a child who just won a prize. HyeonWoo smiles and states that he won a free 1 million won. But when he sees the extent of the destruction he caused, he starts to wonder if they will make him pay for the damage. 24 hours before the Hunter Rank Assessment competition, the editorial team at Live Hunter magazine is abuzz with speculation about the mysterious veteran player. There is little information available, as he is a figure from the distant past. Meanwhile, a new rising star, Lee Kang-hyun, is also gaining attention and may even deserve more focus than the veteran. Lee, a martial arts expert with traditional combat skills, is the subject of an upcoming article as journalists debate whether the veteran player is even relevant. At that moment, Kang-hyun Lee, now in the midst of the exam, boldly declares his ambition to become a legend as he prepares for battle. While others hesitate and step back from a looming monster, he stands his ground, ready to fight. With his sword in hand, he confronts the danger head-on, willing to risk everything for his dream. As a kendo master with numerous victories and titles, Lee is the strongest hunter in his group. He believes that making a powerful first impression will secure his future success. He recalls the meteoric rise of the protagonist in the tower, an overwhelming and unbeatable force. Kang-hyun Lee, a witness to that journey, does not understand how he was overshadowed. During the classification exam, Kang-hyun Lee and the others stare in shock at the destruction left behind. For safety reasons, the exam is put on hold, and everyone is told to wait for further instructions. Behind the scenes, the film crew scrambles to find clear footage of the incident. The cameras, which had been focused on Kang-hyun Lee, had completely overlooked the real protagonist, who unintentionally stole the spotlight. The director, seeing the hero on the screen, declares the rise of a new star. Kang-hyun Lee, feeling bitter, watches the protagonist sleep while the other hunters discuss the explosion, unaware that a veteran player is among them. However, Kang-hyun Lee sees this as a chance to reclaim the attention. The exam organizers announce that the next test will begin soon, waking the protagonist from his nap. Determined not to be overshadowed by the veteran, Kang-hyun Lee moves on to the disciplinary exam, where he will face monsters. He draws his sword and prepares to battle an ogre. Using skill, magic stones, and advanced technology, the virtual training turns into a spectacle, with the goal being to defeat as many monsters as possible in the given time. Kang-hyun Lee demonstrates his electric abilities, astonishing everyone as lightning surges from his blade. With the arrival of a prodigy, he launches a rapid series of attacks, eliminating 78 creatures and earning the highest score among the participants. Viewers watching the broadcast comment that if not for the veteran, Lee would have been the undeniable champion. As the crowd cheers for him, HyeonWoo walks past, yawning, completely uninterested in the excitement. The guild masters watch closely, curious about how he will perform after all this time. The exam resumes. HyeonWoo has 120 seconds to take on a horde of holographic monsters that materialize around him. The audience watches the screen with intense focus. The protagonist, despite being surrounded by monsters, remains entirely calm. As soon as the countdown ends, the creatures attack. Moving at an incredible speed, he crushes the head of a monster in an instant. His movements are so quick that the cameras struggle to track him. The horde is wiped out in moments. To the spectators, it looks as though he has disappeared until, suddenly, the monsters' heads start bursting one by one. Even the guild leaders can't follow his actions, questioning whether he is using some kind of special technique. This theory is dismissed, given that he has just left the tutorial. Upon reviewing the slow-motion footage, it's revealed that he is simply walking up to the monsters and striking them effortlessly without employing any techniques. His sheer power and speed terrify the guild masters, making them wonder what exactly he did inside the tower all those years. When time runs out, he stands among the lifeless monsters. He has single-handedly defeated 248 creatures, breaking the previous record. Viewers online react in awe, discussing how unbelievable his performance was. Some speculate that he must have used magic to move at such speeds. Kang Hyun-lee, reading these comments, smashes his phone in frustration, furious that people are talking about HyeonWoo instead of him. Consumed by rage, he repeatedly punches the wall of his room. He had worked so hard, even resorting to underhanded tactics to climb the ranks only to be completely overshadowed by a random guy from the waiting area. On the other side, a woman hands HyeonWoo a list and asks for his opinion on it. She explains that it contains the names of guilds interested in recruiting him. This woman, standing before him, is Alice, the intelligence chief of the Hunter Association. She states that numerous guilds want him because of the potential he displayed. The protagonist glances at the list, quickly realizing that this important woman isn't here just for that. He asks what exactly she can offer him. She responds that she is there for personal reasons and, aside from wanting to meet the hunter who shook the world, she also suggests that he join the Ares Guild. Right after, she hands him the contract. If he joins the guild, his fixed salary would be 10 billion. Because of the enormous sum, he asks if Korea is experiencing an economic crisis or if the currency has drastically lost value. She clarifies that, on the contrary, the economy has been improving significantly. The land where the protagonist once lived is now worth around 1.3 billion. He is clearly shocked by this revelation. A lot has changed since he entered the tower. She continues, stating that the Ares Guild is very eager to recruit him and is even willing to pay up to twice that amount to secure him. He wonders if someone from the government could be recommending a guild. She explains that this offer comes directly from the Ares Guild scout. She also mentions that he does not have to make a decision right away, but before she can finish, the protagonist interrupts her. He has already made up his mind. He has no intention of being tied to any guild. When he tosses the contract onto the table, she initially thinks he is joking, but he remains resolute, standing firm in his decision. After leaving the room, he reflects on the offer. In this world, everything is a trade-off. They would not offer him a fortune of 10 billion without expecting something in return. If he accepted, he would have to work. Lying in bed with a pile of snacks beside him, the vagabond mutters that he hates working and just wants to live an easy and relaxed life. Resuming their conversation, she asks if he does not plan on becoming a hunter. But he responds, explaining that there are hunters who operate independently without guild affiliations. She sees him as rather arrogant, but still tells him that if he ever changes his mind, he can call the number on the card. Lying in bed, he is frustrated that it took him so long to learn about mercenary hunters. Had he known earlier, he would not have wasted his time taking the hunter's exam. Instead, he would have just used that time to sleep. He glances at the list of guilds and recognizes a few names. 5 days later, at a Japanese restaurant, he fails to recognize the people sitting across from him. The 3 masters of Korea's most prestigious guilds are in front of him. They were his old comrades from 12 years ago. Seokwan Hyun, who was once his age, is now an old man. Sihyun, who used to be a timid boy, has transformed into a handsome young man, while Seoyeon Lee, once a stubborn elementary school student, is now practically unrecognizable. He recalls how Sihyun used to hide behind him, which used to embarrass him quite a bit. He also remembers the time Seoyeon Lee wet herself in fear when she saw Banksy on the 14th floor being threatened with death. At that moment, he feels happy to see his friends again and enjoys his sushi, wondering how he survived 12 years without it. They reminisce about the day they captured the Triton, and he kept humming about wanting to eat sushi. He even cut off its tail just to make sashimi. It is obvious that he has always been a bit crazy inside that tower. His friends, reminiscing about his past, mention that hearing stories about him became a common thing inside the tower. Curious, HyeonWoo asks what kind of stories they mean, only to learn that he has become somewhat of a legend and that his actions inside the tower are still being talked about on TV. This leaves him slightly uneasy. All the ideas he came up with out of boredom have now made it onto television. He wonders which ones were shown since he did quite a lot of things. Many of them were embarrassing. Once, he cleared a dungeon while completely naked. Another time, he completed it while cosplaying as a goblin. They tell him that some of his most famous moments include defeating a boss while dancing and another time when he wiped out all the monsters from the 1st to the 10th floor using only his feet. He feels relieved that the most embarrassing stories have not been exposed. While enjoying his sushi, he explains that those were simply things he felt like doing at the time. His old comrades, who already saw him as a monster after witnessing his evaluation test, only have their beliefs reinforced. He says that being trapped in that tower made him do a lot of strange things, including taking on a disciple. He does not recall the exact moment, but it happened during the time he spent between the 50th and 60th floors, where he found a boy who had been abandoned inside the tower. At that time, he was thinking about creating a martial arts style, so he wore a large cloak and a skull mask, introducing himself to the boy as a mysterious monk. From then on, he started training the boy, making him balance jars filled with water while standing on one foot. He also forced him to lift incredibly heavy weights and instructed him to focus his chakra in his abdomen in order to break a pillar. But all of that was a deception. The only thing he ever relied on was brute strength. Thinking about it now, he feels bad for the boy and is relieved that he wore a mask, definitely not wanting to run into him again. He asks about what has been happening in the outside world, and they continue their long conversation. When he returns home and lies on his bed, he opens the status window again, noticing that the message about reaching the tutorial limit is gone. His age has also reverted to 24, as if he truly lost 12 years of his life. His current goal is just to earn a good amount of money and live a peaceful, quiet life until the day he dies. However, despite many messages disappearing, one remained, the one stating that the infinite cycle had been removed. Upon opening it, he discovers a quest requiring him to kill 3 bosses from specific dungeons. At the same time, he hears someone calling him from outside his room. When he opens the door, the doorman informs him that people from the Ares Guild have come to see him. The protagonist immediately says he is not interested, but the doorman insists. Realizing that they will not leave unless he makes it very clear that he has no intention of joining, he follows the doorman to where the recruiter is waiting. There, seated on the sofa, a man in a suit waits with Johnny Sins standing behind him. HyeonWoo gets straight to the point, stating that he has already made it very clear that he does not want to join a guild. The man introduces himself as Bong-ho Kang, the human resources manager of the Ares Guild. He questions whether the protagonist can truly succeed as a hunter without guild support, assuring him that there will be no unnecessary struggles if he joins Ares. HyeonWoo sees through his intentions and asks if they really came to his house just to threaten him. The bodyguard gets angry at HyeonWoo's boldness, but Kang stops him, warning him not to do anything reckless. HyeonWoo says he knows exactly what kind of guild they are, calling them a group of scum who have taken control of half of Korea's dungeons. During his conversation with his old companions, he learned that a permission ticket is required to enter a dungeon. The Ares Guild has taken control of 66% of all dungeons in the country, from ranked dungeons, which are perfect for farming, to D-ranked ones, which are ideal for training beginners. In the end, they leave people with only 2 choices: either pay their expensive entry fee or join their guild. The bodyguard slams the table, trying to intimidate HyeonWoo, and again suggests that he reconsider the offer, warning that they can end his life if he refuses. The bodyguard then hurls the table against the wall. This man isn't a rank hunter. With a smirk, he asks if the Mick even stands a chance against him. HyeonWoo continues provoking them. Casually seated on the sofa, he gets up, removes his sandal, and states that he is going to teach them some proper manners. The enraged bodyguard charges at him, but with a single slap from his sandal, HyeonWoo sends him crashing into the wall. Kang stares in shock at his fallen companion as the protagonist calmly walks toward him. Before approaching, HyeonWoo briefly thinks that the guard has decent potential, but he is just a big fish in a small pond. The bodyguard, who trained directly with the Ares Guild, was supposed to be strong enough to bring him down, or at least that was the plan. Now, stuck inside the wall, he is completely unconscious, leaving Kang bewildered by what just happened. He wonders how HyeonWoo is so powerful despite not using magic. The protagonist moves closer and asks if he knows what he hates the most. Cornered against the wall, Kang is filled with fear as HyeonWoo continues speaking. The thing he despises the most is when people try to threaten him. With a sinister smile on his face, he strikes Kang. Later that night, HyeonWoo is at Sihyun's house discussing the incident, admitting that he may have overreacted and noting that the people from Ares are relentless in seeking revenge. However, the protagonist has no fear of them. Sihyun goes on to explain that nobody dares to cross them because they hold grudges, making threats, blocking access to guilds, and eliminating people within dungeons. He says that what the protagonist did was quite extreme and suggests that he should join the guild, but HyeonWoo refuses. Now, the protagonist has a plan and asks Sihyun if he ever heard of the Adoron laboratory. During those 12 years, he always wondered why was he the only one who could not escape the tower. His questions are filled with anger and resentment. Who was the bastard responsible for this? Why was he trapped there for 12 years? He believes that uncovering these secrets will lead him to whoever is responsible, and when he finds them, he will make them suffer just as he did. The Adoron laboratory is classified as a C-rank dungeon. Its boss is a half-cyborg mad scientist obsessed with human experimentation. It is known as a good training ground for beginners looking to grow stronger. Sihyun doubts they will allow HyeonWoo to enter, as this dungeon is also controlled by the Ares Guild. Frustrated, HyeonWoo asks if there are no laws to prevent monopolies. Sihyun explains that the government does not have time to deal with hunter-related issues. He adds that the reason people can be killed inside dungeons without consequences is that the police cannot investigate there, categorizing these deaths as accidents. The protagonist decides to invade the dungeon, but Sihyun immediately objects, warning that the place is monitored 24 hours a day. Still, HyeonWoo insists on facing them head-on, only to be scolded for his reckless plan, as it will turn the guild into his enemy. Thinking back to what he did to the last 2 guild members he encountered, he smirks and says it is too late to worry about that. At the Ares Guild headquarters, the leaders are discussing their plans for expansion into China, Russia, and Japan. Satisfied with their progress, HyeonWoo Kim, an S-rank hunter and manager of the Korean branch of the Ares Guild, says that the time frame for expanding to other countries is irrelevant as long as they remain ahead of the competition. Comparing it to escaping from a dungeon boss, he remarks that you do not need to be faster than the boss, just faster than the guy next to you. One of his subordinates arrives to deliver the level analysis of HyeonWoo. After reviewing footage from his movements in the tutorial, they used a specialized machine to accurately measure his stats. Seeing the results, HyeonWoo Kim is astonished, as HyeonWoo's abilities are beyond extraordinary. He asks if they managed to recruit him. Upon learning that they failed, he concludes that the guild is better off without him. Recruiting someone like the protagonist would provide immense benefits to the guild. With his strength, he could make remarkable advancements in labyrinths and dungeons. However, there is also a risk he might not be satisfied with just that, and could eventually aim for the director's position. He then instructs to Jeonwook Yu, one of his personnel, to forget about recruiting him and instead focus on teaching him a lesson, to which Jeonwook affirms. As he steps out of the room, a red-haired man with his hair tied back approaches him. The man informs him about issues at the Adoron laboratory in the Chimbasan Mountains. A young girl is trying to convince the dungeon guards to let her in so she can hunt. The guards tell her that she needs a ticket to enter, suggesting that if she really wants to hunt, she should go to the labyrinth since it's free. One of the guards, noticing the girl is an archer, offers a deal. He says he might change his mind about letting her pass if she gives him her number. Watching the scene, the protagonist walks closer. The man notices him and sarcastically says there's no bathroom there. If he needs one, he should go into the woods. HyeonWoo responds by saying that he wants to enter the dungeon. The guard assumes he must be joking since the dungeon is extremely dangerous. HyeonWoo keeps moving forward. The second guard warns that if he doesn't leave immediately, he's going to get beaten up. Losing patience, HyeonWoo says he has waited long enough and begins removing his sandal. The guards are puzzled by his actions, while HyeonWoo calls out to both of them. One of the guards dismisses him as a crazy person and tells him to leave. But as he steps closer, HyeonWoo smacks him with the sandal, sending him flying several meters away. The remaining guard turns around, trying to grasp what just happened. Meanwhile, HyeonWoo approaches from behind. Since he overdid it and his sandal got destroyed, he tells the other guard to hand over his shoes. With an intimidating glare, he warns that if the man refuses, he'll end up like his friend. Now wearing the guard's shoes, which resemble armored boots, he comments on how light and comfortable they are. The man explains that they cost him 5 million won because of weight reduction magic. HyeonWoo, insisting that he's not a bad person, returns his worn-out sandals to the man. The girl who had been arguing with the guards decides to leave. Meanwhile, the remaining guard looks heartbroken over the ruined sandals. On the other side, at the Seoul Guild headquarters, Seoyeon Lee yells at Sihyun, demanding to know how he let the protagonist just walk away like that. Sihyun complains about being yelled at and says that HyeonWoo isn't someone who can be stopped. The best he could do was warn him about the Aries Guild. They recall their time together in a dungeon. Normally, HyeonWoo isn't the type to cause trouble and tends to let things slide. But if someone pushes him too far, everything changes, and his dark side emerges. HyeonWoo examines his new shoes while his companions try to reassure themselves that he'll be fine. After discussing the Aries Guild, he asks about his current status, surprising Seoyeon Lee with what she hears. Inside the dungeon, Adoron is searching for new test subjects to continue his experiments. A group of adventurers hides in the shadows, observing him. They discuss their next move, noting that the Aries Guild doesn't bother with this boss since he doesn't generate much profit. Since they're already inside, they suggest taking him down. But one of the group members, a young woman, doubts whether their skills are strong enough. Before entering, they researched the boss and found out that while he has high defense, his attack power is low. If they can wear him out, they have a chance to defeat him. Feeling determined, they prepare for battle. Just then, they notice a man casually walking up to the boss. The group is bewildered, wondering who this guy is standing face to face with the dungeon boss. 12 years ago, HyeonWoo's teammates learned about his childhood in an orphanage. He was always told to stay out of trouble and hide the fact that he had no parents. After his parents passed away, his cousin placed him in an orphanage and stole his inheritance. Perhaps because of that betrayal, he lost faith in humanity. Though he usually stays calm, if someone tries to control or pressure him, he cannot suppress his deep-seated resentment. Back at the present, the monstrous half-cybernetic boss considers what kind of experiment to conduct first, sparking his blades in excitement. HyeonWoo tells him to stop, but the boss merely laughs and asks why he should listen. Without hesitation, HyeonWoo delivers a single powerful kick, completely destroying the boss's body. The adventurers watching are left speechless. HyeonWoo checks his status window again and sees that one of the missions is now complete. The next target is in the forest village. The group of adventurers recognizes him, realizing that he's currently the most talked about person in the hunter community. In the Aries Guild basement, a subordinate approaches Chunmyung, the guild's management chief, and hands over HyeonWoo's evaluation report. He was shocked to see that someone fresh out of the tutorial already has 2B rank attributes. Myung remarks that HyeonWoo is practically a monster and asks if they should take care of him. They are already aware that HyeonWoo invaded one of their dungeons and note how humiliating it must have been for the director. If HyeonWoo is truly that strong, they may not be able to just scare him off. They might need to eliminate him, though Myung promises to be discreet. With the guild leader preoccupied with matters in China, the situation is tricky. 2 years ago, when the Podo Guild was established, it took control of nearly half of China's dungeons. The guild's success is attributed to its mysterious leader, an S-rank hunter whose identity remains unknown. Since they are heavily focused on their Chinese expansion, they can now plan how to deal with HyeonWoo, who is busy taking pictures, is amazed by how much technology has advanced. He takes a picture of Sihyun and is excited that he can even play games on his phone. Sihyun explains that the dungeon HyeonWoo wants to enter is controlled by his guild, but the boss isn't currently there. HyeonWoo, irritated, asks why. He explains that the boss was defeated a few weeks ago. The system in real life works differently than inside the tower. Dungeon monsters usually regenerate within a day, but in reality, the rules are different. Normal monsters respawn constantly, but dungeon bosses take longer to reappear. HyeonWoo panics, thinking he'll have to wait an entire month for the boss to respawn. However, he reassures him that it will only take 2 or 3 more days. Sihyun then asks when HyeonWoo plans to register his ranking at the Hunters Association. With an official ranking, he can gain sponsorships and financial benefits. When Sihyun mentions money, HyeonWoo suddenly gets excited and asks how much he can earn. He explains that it depends on the rank. For instance, B-rank hunters can earn up to 1.3 million won, while higher ranks make significantly more. Sehyun himself earns 7 million won. The following day, HyeonWoo heads to the Hunters Association with Sehyun. The receptionist asks if he's there to register and requests his name. Upon realizing that HyeonWoo is the guy who escaped after 12 years, he recalls that Kang Hyun Lee had been searching for him. Finding HyeonWoo arrogant for a rookie, he assumes his rank will be, at best, B rank. He hands HyeonWoo a small box called the Eye of Truth, which will assess his stats and project them as a hologram. As HyeonWoo grips the box, the hologram appears. The receptionist stares in disbelief at the displayed stats. Completely shocked, he yells that there's no way those numbers make sense. Once again, news about HyeonWoo is spreading rapidly. People online comment that aside from magic, all his statuses are a rank and that no one else in the world has stats like his. While returning by car, HyeonWoo is amazed at how fast the news spreads on the internet. Sehyun says it is inevitable since, in addition to his monstrous stats, he also caused a commotion inside the Ares Guild's dungeon. Sehyun warns that the Ares Guild has likely gathered enough information about him, and that after today's incident, they won't just stand by and do nothing. As he tells the protagonist to be cautious, he is playing on his phone. He suddenly starts laughing and shows his screen. He points out that on the game's loading screen, there is a hunter striking a ridiculous pose with cheap effects. Sehyun, now serious, says that the hunter in the image is actually him, creating an awkward atmosphere in the car. The protagonist then asks if Sehyun has nothing better to do since the other guild masters are always busy while he seems to have plenty of free time. Sehyun replies that he is just as busy as the others and only took a day off to help him. However, the protagonist does not quite believe that explanation. Back in the basement of the Ares Guild, people are amazed by the protagonist's strength. Myung assures them not to worry since he called Chungkang Shin, a hunter who is close to reaching a high rank in China. Now in the forest village, HyeonWoo and Sehyun wait for the dungeon boss to regenerate. As they go deeper into the forest, a man a few meters away watches them with a smile. The protagonist asks about the man walking with them, and Sehyun explains that he is an assistant responsible for gathering materials. The protagonist does not fully understand what kind of materials these are, so Sehyun explains that the materials dropped by the dungeon boss can be sold for 20 to 35 million won. The protagonist, shocked, asks what kind of things people make with those materials. Sehyun comments that someone dressed like him would probably not understand their purpose, explaining that they are used to craft weapons and armor. The assistant requests permission to record the raid, explaining that money can be made through streaming. In HyeonWoo, a top-tier mercenary wants to take 80% of the profit. They continue walking deeper into the forest. Sehyun hands the protagonist a map, warning him that the further they go, the more the forest turns into a labyrinth. However, as the protagonist has no idea how to read the map, he simply throws it away. As he approaches a large tree, he turns to the assistant and tells him to capture everything on camera. Preparing to throw a punch, he hits the tree so hard that a large part of the forest is destroyed, creating a direct path to the dungeon boss, a two-headed ogre. The assistant is in awe of HyeonWoo's abilities, recording everything as they approach the boss. With a leap, the protagonist reaches the boss's height, dodging its attack before climbing onto its shoulder. He kicks the boss, making it fall, and under the moonlight, he stands on top of it. In just a few moments, he has eliminated the dungeon boss. While the assistant is thrilled that his video will go viral, the man watching from the tree grins maliciously. Back at Ares Guild office, this man is the hunter Chin-young referred to from China named Chen Kang, who observes the protagonist's skills. He acknowledges that HyeonWoo truly deserves the title of an advanced player. His physical abilities are overwhelming even without magic or special abilities. However, his weaknesses are quite obvious. Tomorrow, he plans to invade the swamp dungeon, making it the perfect time to strike. Next day, at Visible Swamp entrance, the protagonist senses that something feels off as he receives a message on his phone. It is from Seoyeon Lee, who expresses concern for his safety. Despite this, the protagonist continues forward, confident that neither the Ares Guild nor anything else can stop him. The day before, Seoyeon Lee questioned why he wanted to enter the Ares Guild's territory. He replied that he had some business to take care of there. She pressed him for details, but he refused to elaborate. She asked if he was doing this just to go against Ares, and he admitted that was part of the reason. Seoyeon Lee sighed. Even though she knew he was strong, given what she had heard about his abilities, she still worried about him. She advised him to avoid clashing with the Ares Guild members. Since the swamp dungeon was in a rank area, Ares was also likely waiting for the boss to respawn. The protagonist acknowledged her advice but had no intention of following it. Inside the dungeon, he encounters a Ares Guild member who brandishes a knife and threatens him. The man yells, trying to intimidate the protagonist, who recalls his friend's words. Seeing the man take an aggressive stance, he sighs and asks why they never learn. They disrespect him upon arrival, underestimate him, and then get beaten for it. Already exhausted from this routine, the protagonist comments on how predictable it has become, further irritating his opponent, who charges at him. An explosion erupts as the protagonist casually walks away. While stepping on the soft ground of the swamp, he is being watched by a monster in the water. As soon as the creature detects that the protagonist is close enough, it lunges at him. In front of him stands a crocodile over 20 meters long. Impressed by its size, he remembers his friend's words. Its hide is incredibly tough, and its teeth are extremely valuable. With a smirk, the protagonist prepares to fight, aiming to kill it quickly and take all the loot. However, the battle takes an unexpected turn. When the monster tries to flee, he grabs both of its tails, preventing it from escaping into the water. The desperate monster hears the protagonist mention an attack called the giant swing. Before it can react, it is violently spun in the air and hurled toward a mountain. Surprisingly, the crocodile survives and retaliates. Seeing its renewed determination, the protagonist asks if it really wants to suffer more. Meanwhile, Junkang is observing the fight. As the crocodile charges at him, HyeonWoo prepares to finish it off, but suddenly, glowing chains wrap around his legs. Junkang, launching a sneak attack, declares that it is time for the protagonist to die. As the boss lunges to attack, HyeonWoo swiftly dodges. He glances at his legs and notices the glowing red chains binding him. Confused, he looks around, and from atop a rock, Junkang announces that these are magic chains, specifically designed to trap someone like him who lacks magic. Sitting on the ground, the protagonist asks who he is. The man descends from the rock and introduces himself, revealing that he was personally sent by the Ares Guild to deal with him. The protagonist, now covered in dirt, identifies him as an assassin from the guild. The man confirms it and acknowledges HyeonWoo's monstrous strength, especially considering how effortlessly he tossed the giant crocodile. However, he asserts that with the magic chains restraining him, HyeonWoo is now powerless. The protagonist attempts to break free, but finds the chains unyielding. Junkang explains that these are no ordinary restraints. They are imbued with magic, meaning that the only way to escape is by using magic, something the protagonist lacks. This strategy was specifically designed for him, as he had just emerged from the tower with no magic capabilities. HyeonWoo nonchalantly asks if he should be worried, irritating Junkang. He complains that everyone acts the same way, pretending nothing is wrong even when caught off guard. The protagonist, still acting unbothered, only makes him angrier. Drawing his sword, Junkang slashes at HyeonWoo. As the blade makes contact, an explosion erupts. He assumes he has killed him, but when the smoke clears, the protagonist stands there unharmed, unfazed by the attack. Seeing that his strike had no effect, Junkang panics. He tries attacking again but is caught off guard by a powerful punch, sending him flying. HyeonWoo approaches him, stating that he should have restrained his entire body. The confused Junkang watches as the chains dissolve. Without hesitation, the protagonist breaks the tree he was tied to and lifts it. Knowing what is about to happen, Junkang braces himself. In the next instant, HyeonWoo hurls him at the crocodile, killing it instantly. A mission completion notification appears before him, updating his status window. Back at the Ares Guild, Myung receives word that Junkang has been eliminated. The tree he was bound to has sunk into the swamp, making it impossible to recover his remains. Junkang was a hunter with 2 S-rank statuses along with 7 abilities. Someone so powerful ended up losing to HyeonWoo. Myung feels both worried and stressed, thinking about how to deal with HyeonWoo. Back home, HyeonWoo lies on the sofa, lost in thought. He sighs before opening his status window. New updates have appeared. He gained the ability to scan statuses and also received an invitation from the system to act as a temporary guardian. He does not fully understand it, but is pleased that something has changed. He assumed that completing the mission would grant him some information from the tower, yet all he received was an invitation that expires in 2 hours. Sehyun arrives home and asks if he has eaten. HyeonWoo takes this moment to check his new ability. Using status scan, he tries to examine another person's status but finds little information due to the ability's low level. Frustrated, he calls it useless, making Sihyun mistakenly believe he was talking about him. Sitting on the sofa, he waits for the system to update so he can learn more about the tower. When the clock strikes midnight, everything around him darkens, and he is teleported to a room. In this room, a woman sits at a table in front of him with an empty expression. She greets him and introduces herself as his assistant, Av. She states that as long as he is alive, they will meet frequently. The protagonist feels excited, believing he will finally get some answers to his questions. He is eager to understand why he was trapped in the tower. Facing Av, he waits for her to speak. When she remains silent, he asks if she is going to explain anything. He soon discovers that she only responds to questions. His first question is about who imprisoned him in the tutorial tower, but she cannot answer because his status scan level is too low. He gets irritated, realizing that to receive answers, he must level up his scan ability. He continues asking various questions, but she does not answer any, frustrating him to the point that he flicks her on the forehead. Without knowing who she is or why she summoned him, he becomes more annoyed by her lack of responses. Av then states there is one thing she can tell him. The guardians are those who protect. He sighs and gives up, asking what information he needs to know. She explains that since he is currently a temporary guardian, he will receive more detailed answers as he ranks up. He asks how to become a full guardian. She replies that in 5 days, a rift will open in his region. In its deepest part, he will find a key to upgrade his scan level. By obtaining this key, he will become an official guardian. Back home, he reflects on the situation, determined to do whatever it takes to gain information. The next day, he meets with the guild masters and informs them about the upcoming rift. Everyone present is alarmed by the news, as a rift signals impending disaster. At Ares Guild headquarters, the director slams his fist on the table upon hearing that one of the company's strongest fighters was killed. He is furious and orders unlimited spending to ensure his revenge. He instructs them to find a mercenary stronger than the previous one, determined to see HyeonWoo dead. After dealing with him, he plans to shift focus to the Pata Guild, as its members are being taken out by a special mass troops. Meanwhile, the protagonist is fascinated by a ring, a small item worth over 2 billion wons, found in labyrinths. Curious, he asks about the difference between labyrinths and dungeons. They explain that labyrinths contain artifacts like this ring, whereas dungeons only provide monster resources or magic crystal stones. The ring is enchanted, similar to those in games. Using his ability, he identifies it as a class item with pyrokinesis, but due to his ability's low level, he cannot discern much more. Frustrated with his weak ability, he decides that once he completes his current tasks, he will visit a labyrinth. Remembering his conversation with Avi, he asks if they know about rifts, startling everyone. A rift is when the ground suddenly splits open, unleashing an endless wave of monsters. Witnesses who have seen one firsthand called it the gates of hell. Since Av spoke about it so casually, the protagonist assumed it was not a big deal, which irritates him. He then asks what would happen if a rift opened in Korea. Everyone falls silent, knowing that while a low-ranking rift could be stopped, it would still leave the area devastated. Some guilds would fight against the rift, while Ares Guild would likely send expendable members and take credit for defending against it. The protagonist looks at the meat on his plate and tells them to eat well and rest over the next few days, confusing them. A few days later, at the airport, a small tremor begins. The earthquake intensifies as the ground starts to crack. A red rift slowly opens, expanding into a massive chasm. Meanwhile, in a distant castle, a hooded figure approaches a large circular table, stating that the 9th class has awakened. A man seated at the table asks if it has fully awakened. The hooded man replies that it has not yet, but will soon. The timing could not be better. This demonic-looking man observes HyeonWoo, curious to see what he is capable of. Back at the airport, people fall to the ground in fear as the earthquake continues. Some manage to stand, while others collapse to their knees. A news helicopter flying over the scene warns people to evacuate due to the rift's emergence. The airport is placed on lockdown, and hunters are deployed, but waves of monsters keep pouring out. The situation worsens, turning into a battle between humans and beasts. The monsters advance relentlessly. Some people, overwhelmed by fear, are unable to act, but a team member uses a skill to trap some creatures, gaining time to eliminate them. As an experienced hunter, he orders a rookie to get up and keep fighting. However, after slaying multiple monsters, they realizes the situation is deteriorating since reinforcements have yet to arrive. No matter how many they defeat, more monsters continue to appear. They must target the exact location where the rift emerged. A man hears a sound and, upon looking, sees a massive skeleton approaching. It is a rank monster, causing despair among the people. As the skeleton prepares to strike, the man orders everyone to flee while he tries to shield them. Even while defending himself, the force of the attack sends him flying into a car. The skeleton moves closer, ready to land the final blow. At the last moment, HyeonWoo intervenes. With his hands still in his pockets, he kicks the skeleton's head, shattering it. The people recognize him instantly. The black casual clothes he wears make it clear who he is. The advanced player from the news is standing before them. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one.